At one point or another, you have either been trying to find statistics in Bermuda, certain records, or asking yourself, why don't I see this information right there on the department's page? Or maybe you did find the records, but they're way out of date. So in this episode, I'm going to teach you how to send a PATI request. So what's a PATI request? As blatantly as it is right there in the title, public access to information. So with that being said, for this episode specifically, we're going to just have one example question, and I'm going to go through the steps of how to send a PATI request. So the example question for this one is, how many men serving time at a correctional facility have had parole hearings? Now, let's go. Hey, so I want to send a PATI request about how many men who are serving time at the correctional facilities have had parole hearings. So that's a pretty broad question. You're going to need to narrow that down a little bit. Well, why do I have to do that? Well, because if you were to send that to a public authority, that question just might not be specific enough, and they could deny you because it's just way too broad. So the best thing you could do is just really condense it a bit more to make it a lot more specific. So like, for instance, let's try asking, how many incarcerated men at the Westgate facility have had parole hearings in the years of 2018 to 2020? See, right there, you're already narrowing it down, giving a location and a time frame as well. Okay, all right, I understand. So now what? Now who do I send that request to? Well, after that, first you have to think, okay, who would be the best person to have these records? That person will be known as a public authority. Now, there are many public authorities, but you just got to find the correct one under the department that you are looking for specifically. Okay, so my best guess is that the Ministry of National Security should have something like that, like those civil records, right? That's actually a good suggestion, and we could actually start by confirming that by going to ICO.bm. What's that? So that's the Information Commissioner Office, and basically their job is to make sure that every single PATI request that is being sent out is treated fairly and under the PATI Act. Now, they cannot actually send a PATI request for you, but what they can do is help navigate who to send that request to. So we could do that by checking out their website. So let's take a look. Okay, so top of the page here. Let's look at what is available for the public. That's us. And check it. There's a public authority list. Let's click that. See, this is the full list. Now let's go to the Ministry of Security, like you suggested. Here's all the sources, and check it out. The Parole Board. That's specific, and this should be the public authority you need to contact. Sweet. So let's send them the request. How do we do that? You know, actually, it's as simple as sending an email and putting in the subject line, this question is being asked under the guise or under the PATI Act. And that's really all you have to do. Or you can actually use a form. Here's an example of a form. And here's another example that you can find on the Bermuda Police .bm website as well. This is their specific PATI form. And whoever you send it to has to have an answer to you within 6 weeks of you sending that PATI request. Okay, 3 questions. Number 1, why does it take so long? And number 2, what if I sent it to the wrong person? Like, how long would it take for me to know that? Where does it go afterwards? And number 3, can they actually deny me the access to the information? That's a great question. Thanks. It's kind of a thing I do. Okay, so let's get serious. So they do need a time frame. So 6 weeks is that time frame. It doesn't mean that they're going to actually take the entire 6 weeks. Sometimes it can be earlier, or they might contact you within that 6 weeks to let you know, hey, we need something more specific, or maybe they can't give this information to you at all. And that will answer your first question. Now for the second question, if you actually end up sending it to the wrong person, that person has 5 days to actually send that to the correct person who has the records. So as soon as they receive it and it's notified on their desk, they have 5 days to send it to the correct person. And the third question that you had about whether or not they can deny it, yes, they can deny it. Like again, I told you earlier, if it's too broad, they could say they don't have enough manpower. Or let's say it's just something that they've decided cannot be public information. And in that case, then you have to go to the head of the public authority instead. And if they continue to deny it, that's when you go to the ICO, because they are an independent agency that would actually look into it further, like we talked about earlier. Yes, the Information Commissioner Office, right? Correct, they're the Information Commissioner Office, which means that they promote and also just make sure that every single PATI request that's being sent is being treated fairly under the Act. Now, if you send a PATI request and the public authority denies it, and the head of public authority denies it, this is when ICO will get in contact and will get involved and do an independent search and an investigation to see if that, you know, information is actually meant to be denied to the public, or maybe you can actually get it and they are wrong, or in some circumstances you might not be able to get all the information, but you can still get a portion. Okay, it's kind of crazy how many steps need to be taken if my request was to get denied. I mean, I guess that's why we have the ICO, you know, because they try to keep everything transparent, and I can't imagine what it was like trying to get access to information without them if, you know, we constantly getting denied. But yeah, talking about access to information though, like, what's the privacy level on this? Because will everyone like know that it's me requesting this information? Like, well, actually, they're not allowed to tell anybody that it's you. Only the person that receives your PATI request should know that it's only coming from you. And while they're trying to gather all the information, they should never say your name, because that is the level of privacy that they are adhered to. But what if they do tell? Like, how will I know that it's private and that I'm protected? Like, are there any consequences? Okay, so there is actually an example of when someone did break that privacy, and I'm going to let you listen to this interview that I did with ICO that explains what exactly happened to them in terms of consequences.
Your identity should be protected each step of the way. They shouldn't say, Maya is coming in asking for this information. That's a breach of the PATI Act.
How would you know if someone breaches that?
We don't always know unless we're told that it happens. Like, there are some public officers who are well aware of that, and they will flag that that's happened. That has happened in the past, where they will flag, you know what, somebody actually came in here and they were asking about this person's request instead of the records she requested, right? And that's how we try to communicate with public authorities. As you're moving the request along, think of it as these records were requested versus Maya came and requested these records. Mm-hmm. What happens to the officers?
The officers who breach the confidentiality requirement. But the individual, what the individual can do is that they have the option to sue the relevant public authority and the information officer, and that's happened as well. We've seen that happen. I don't know if you remember, but in the early
it was like when the first or second
in
PATI
2016 or in 2016, 2015, an MP made a PATI request, and then during the parliamentary session, another MP disclosed the fact that that MP made a PATI request. So then the commissioner initiated proceedings, initiated her investigation, and then there's a report issue addressing that matter. And since then, we've got reports from other people about public authorities breaching the confidentiality of their identities, and we're aware that at least in one occasion, the individual filed a legal suit against the public authority.
Okay. All right, cool. So is there anything else I need to know before I send this? You're Bermudian, then you're good to go.